Assalamu alaikum. This is our third lecture, and first part, Russia's geostrategic challenges. If we talk about the strategic position of Russia, so Russia is having both is both blessed and cursed, as like China. For example, Russia is the biggest country of the world, and it, like for example, from its eastern border to the western border, its length is almost 8,000 kilometers, whereas we can calculate it, like for example, from Multan to Karachi it's only 1,000 kilometers. So this is how much big it is, like 8,000 kilometers from eastern border to western border, and vertically from north to south it is almost 3,100 kilometer long, big, and it almost 11 time zone passes through it, and like it is situated in two of the continents, in Europe and Asia, and it's western northwestern area borders with Denmark, and it southeastern border borders with Russia. South Korea. Though it's big in size, but its population is not that much big, and the worst thing over here is the weather is so harsh, and that the people doesn't like to settle in Russia, and the people of Russia makes $7,000 per year, and which is quite less. And if we talk about living of its population, almost 30 million of its population lives in its eastern part, whereas 115 million of its population lives in its western part, with Europe. As we have talked even in the previous lectures, we'll discuss the borders of France. Like for example, the France western border, western borders with the English Channel Sea, and it is being protected by English Channel, and another part of its western border is being secured by this Atlantic Ocean, and in its south its borders is having huge mountains. That is the area which is bordered with Spain, and then its area with Italy is having a natural shield of Alps mountains, and the other part in the eastern side is covered by this Rhine river. So whereas the other half eastern border of its and the eastern border of the France is not protected, and in both World War I and World War II it was invaded through Belgium and Luxembourg, despite the fact that France has developed a Magneto line, a steel wall over here, but it was breached. If there would have been some natural barrier like huge mountains, it would have been difficult for them to conquer or to invade France from this very border. As we have already discussed that Russia is quite big in size, and if we go into history, it was quite hard for Russians to maintain their right on their land. Like for example, in western Russia. A lot of people used to migrate and they used to settle, and it was quite difficult for the then ruler that to identify where the new people have come and they have started living. So with the passage of time, as with the technology advancement and the ruler of the past of Russia has strengthened their military in terms of numerically, and even they have trained them in maintaining the writ on their land. So with the passage of time, it became easy for them to exercise the writ properly on their land and to resist or to fight back the people who invades and used to settle on their lands. Russia is immense in size, and it is quite difficult for any of the country to invade in it. Why? Like for example, I'll give an example of World War II. Before the World War had started, Germany had signed a pact with Russians, and that non-aggression pact that was actually. But as the war has started, but in 1941, Germany has invaded in Russia, and they have invaded in Russia. Russia was not expecting an invasion from Germany. What did the Russians do? Actually, they have actually let the Germans get in, because from western to eastern border, it's almost stretched in 8,000 kilometer. So they have let them come inside for almost 2,000 to 3,000 kilometer. So it had become difficult for the Germans to maintain their supply line, because it had become a long supply line, and there were threats that it can be cut off anytime. So and even the weather is quite harsh, and because of ice and mud, it was almost difficult, almost impossible for the Germans to move ahead. So due to this large territory and its weather, the German troops have stuck over there, and the Russian was already familiar with their terrain, with their weather, and so they have very easily cut off their supply line, cut off the supply line of the German troops, and they have crushed the army that had come inside Russia, and then they have forced the remaining Russian troops in the remaining German troops in Russia back. So again, it has the large area of Russia has proved a blessing for them during this war. And if any of the country want to conquer Russia, they need at least 10 to 12 million trained troops that should occupy it. And if we count the standing military personnel of top 10 countries, so it hardly become 10 to 12 million. So even the top 10 countries, if combined together, cannot conquer Russia numerically, if we speak numerically in terms of number. And this is the reason that because of its terrain and the harsh weather and no warm water port, because of all these conditions, Russia has hardly become an economic power, and that's why its GDP is quite low, and it's as equal to the GDP of Turkey. And despite the fact that Russia is having almost 38 to 40,000 kilometer of coastal line, but all this is freezed, and it doesn't have any warm water access, and this is the reason they don't even maintain a huge navy as China, Britain, USA and France are maintaining. So here is the first part of this Russian geostrategic challenges. We are gonna come with the second part soon. So stay blessed and Allah Hafiz.